You are listening to the Masculine Mindset Show, a podcast for introverts to get more confidence, more importantly, more self-worth, and of course, get more fit. Women are a side benefit. More importantly, I turn nice guys into bad motherfuckers. Let's get into the content. You fucking legend. Sponsored by Brain FM. Real binaural beats that has sleep tracks, meditation tracks, recharge tracks, relaxation tracks, focus tracks, which, by the way, those focus tracks are really fucking good. Man, do I focus when I am writing my blogs, you guys. Okay, let's get into the content. I fucking love it. If you'd sign up right now. Masculine Mindset Show. It's Adam Skoda. On today's episode, I have Michael Sartain, and I'm just excited to do this topic today because, quite frankly, there's a mindset thought that I had on the back of my head before I wrote on this interview, Michael, and I wanted to let me know if you agree with me here, but basically what I thought here is most times people often they think a little too low of themselves. They have to really place themselves on a pedestal to really think of themselves highly to actually network with celebrities. So with that said, I'm going to actually introduce Michael Sartain to my audience so that you can let me know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah. So the thing is this, as a man, you don't really have to network with actual celebrities. That's really not the point. But what the thing is that you need to look at when you see people like taking photos of celebrities or the reaction that celebrities get, or if you're a guy who's ever dated a pretty girl and seen celebrities slide into her DMs, one of the things that you'll notice is the actual effect that fame and status has on other people. Bill Perkins talks about this with his best friend Dan Bilzerian when he talks about fame brain. People get fame brain and they just don't see things correctly and they act weird. Occasionally I'll get that when like some people come from the manosphere and they've been watching myself or Rolo, and you'll see they'll come up and they'll just be super nervous and they want to take a picture with us or whatever. And occasionally you'll see that with girls who like watch some of my content from Babes in Toyland and the bikini competitions, whatever. But the reality is, to them, contextually, I'm famous, but it's not really famous. So the thing is, when we say celebrity, I think a better way to say it, Adam, would be the concept of a local celebrity, which is something that didn't exist 30 years ago. So 30 years ago, you were either Tom Cruise, right? You were Arnold Schwarzenegger, or you were the janitor at the high school. Your fame was either like a 10 or your fame was like at a 0. And you were defined to be famous because you were in a magazine, you were in a movie, you were on a TV show, you were a politician, or you were some professional athlete. Those things made you famous, legitimately. Maybe you were an author, something like that. There was like almost like a Hollywood industrial complex that determined you're famous and you're not famous. When social media came out, people started to choose what they thought was fame. Like, for instance, like the fit look that you see now with girls like very fit, that was not big in the 80s. You did not see a lot of girls with quads and six-pack abs in magazines back then. That was something that just happened maybe in the last couple, last few decades. And in part, it had to do with social media. Men were like, we're tired of this really skinny look. We like a little bit of ass, a little bit of curves. And so you saw men sort of speak out, and you see a lot of that body type on social media now where you didn't see it before. But what you'll find is that there's also this mid-tier of fame. Like, for instance, if we were to consider, like, say, Lionel Messi, Barack Obama, The Rock, like up here, like they're 10 out of 10 famous, Donald Trump, Andrew Tate, we'll call them like 10 out of 10 famous. If we come down a couple of steps, we'll get to people like Aiden Ross and Patrick Bet-David. They're still famous, but they're like maybe a 6 out of 10, right? They're not quite as famous as Drake, but they're still famous. And then we go down a little bit further, we're going to find like the mayor in your city, the top injury attorney or the top attorney in your entire city, guys like that, or performers here in Las Vegas. And they're going to be a little bit less famous, but we'll say they're like a 4 or 3. Mm-hmm. I want anyone who's watching this to realize that you can be like a 2 or a 3. And what I mean by that is you're the guy, whenever you go out, every nice restaurant, the GM and the chef knows who you are and they come out and greet you. It's not that expensive. If you go out to dinner maybe once a month at a nice restaurant and you say, hey, could I don't know if he's busy, but could you have the chef come out? We want to compliment the chef. And the chef comes out and you're sitting at a table with you and 6 girls and you're telling the chef, hey man, this place is incredible. The next time you come to that restaurant, the chef is going to come out and greet you. If you're on a date with a girl, you look like a local celebrity. That's the kind of things that I want. You get social proof from that. You should at least be to the point where every attractive girl in the city has at least seen your face on social media. And you should be to the point where if anytime you want to go to some kind of venue, nightclub, bar, what, day pool or whatever, the guys at the door know who you are. This is local celebrity status, like a 2 or a 3 out of 10. And some of you guys will get further than that. But if you get to just that level, you're going to have a girl to date every night of the week. It's an incredible way to like meet people of the opposite sex, but it's also a great way for you to network so that you can grow your business. It's a great way for you to grow your brand. So like, again, if you're the best plastic surgeon in your city, or you're the best accountant in your city, or maybe you're an accountant that specializes in just representing girls who are influencers, things like that. Those are all opportunities that you have to use like this local celebrity status, again, that didn't exist before social media. And then from that, you can build a business and have an incredible dating life and meet the girl of your dreams.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So the whole purpose for bringing up that mindset issue that I think a lot of guys struggle with is because I always talk about mindset on my show. This is called the Masculine Mindset Show for a reason. And I think that a lot of people out there, they will compare themselves to big people like that too much, and I think it's a problem. So I want to actually address that real quick and say, guys, I know you're listening to my show. Don't get insecure because honestly, they're just like you. I've met musicians. Actually, there's someone who I work with, dude. He was a okay. His name is Davey, and he was a musician for about 17 years in a Paul McCartney tribute band, and he's just like any other person, you guys. Just like any other person. And I want all of my listeners to remember that when you are meeting people out there, just remember that they're just a human being. Don't put the halo on their head, as I talk about on my episode called "To Next Your Masculinity and Destroy the Nice Guy Syndrome." On that episode, I basically say the halo effect is very real, and you don't want to put these people out of your league because it's just really bad. So that's the one point I wanted to address really quick. Now, I also wanted to talk about why celebrity is power real quick. I actually took notes on this, Michael. So I wrote down here, the social perception of you is so high value that all of your work is basically done and made simple. This is the power of basically being a local celebrity. And that's how I believe that most people have got to network themselves. So yeah, that's how I see it. If there's anything that you want to say on that, let me know.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just think it's important for people to understand, even if you don't care about becoming more popular, understand that this is still a mechanism that works in your favor or works against you. And if you guys have ever gone to a party and like lost the attention of a woman that you're talking to because somebody else was more interesting, or someone else she was just more interested in seeing some other guy, or there was a more interesting conversation on the other end of the table or something to that effect. Have you ever been in like the pool, like in a hot tub, and people want to hang out on this side versus this side? I've seen that happen before. In those type of situations, you're going to come to the realization that a level of status is really, really important. And the other part is this concept where people have, so going back to what you're saying before, Adam, the mindset. So the mindset is people don't give themselves permission. Mm-hmm. They think, well, I don't want to go and take a chance and create some of this content like what Michael is talking about, some of these things that are this very disruptive content that are pattern interrupts for people. I have a friend of mine, Steve Demopoulos here in Vegas. He's probably the most successful attorney in the city. And Steve has billboards all over the city. And he has this video on his Instagram where he's got these two really pretty blondes getting into his Bugatti and getting into the passenger seat so he can take them home. And like no personal injury attorney would ever post something like that 10 years ago. And obviously, what does it make it look like? It makes it look like Steve is going to pull these two girls to have a threesome, right? That's kind of like a scoundrel. Right? That's not like the superhero. That's the scoundrel. That's Iron Man. That's not Captain America. And because he has that scoundrel mindset, you would think it would hurt his business. Adam, it helps his business. And the reason why that happens is because status is status is status. This is something you guys want to write down. Just remember this. Status is status is status. People all the time, I mean, we can talk about O.J. Simpson being super famous after, he was acquitted from a murder trial, or we can talk about the fact that, Donald Trump fucked a porn star while his wife was pregnant. Nobody really held it against him. We can talk about Jordan Belfort and them making a movie about him where he goes to jail for 15 months and punches his wife in the stomach, and we still love him. We think he's like the greatest sales trainer ever. We can talk about all these people screwing up and doing crazy stuff, and they really don't like pay for it in the end. We can talk about Ray Lewis having murder charges against him and being a contributor on NFL. We can talk about Michael Irvin and his situation where he bragged about all the prostitutes and cocaine he did while he was in the NFL, and he has an incredible. He's one of the best interviews on all of radio. Man, people like love talking to him. So we can see all these instances where people do things where they like screw up. Caitlyn Jenner running over someone and then killing them, and then named Woman of the Year 4 months later, or the concept of the idea that Kim Kardashian does a sex tape and now she's getting legislation passed on prison reform. I'm not saying this because I'm trying to insult any of these people. What I'm trying to say is you're worried about having the wrong kind of status. And what I'm here to tell you is there is no wrong kind of status. No matter what you do, Logan Paul, just think about all the insults that were hurled at him and his fiance, Nina Agdal, when all those photographs of her with other men came out. Well, the reality of the situation is after that fight that happened between he and Dylan Dennis, Logan Paul is even more famous now than he was before. Same thing with Aiden Ross and his girlfriend apparently seeing someone else or cheating on him or something. Same thing with Neon. Their girlfriends go off with some other dude and they actually get more famous because of it. And the reason why is because just being more famous, it's like it all kind of counts in one direction. Back when I was growing up, Adam, we had like the Iron Sheik and Hulk Hogan. So the Iron Sheik was the bad guy and Hulk Hogan was the good guy. And it was very clear for us when we watched these shows that there was no moral ambiguity. One guy was the good guy and one guy was the bad guy. And because of that, we've got it in our head that there's good guy status and bad guy status. And the reality is the bad guy status is Iron Man and the good guy status is Captain America. They're both superheroes, but one guy is kind of an asshole and a scoundrel, and the other guy is like a paragon of virtue and full of integrity. But they're both very attractive archetypes to women. So we need to understand status is status is status. There isn't good guy status and bad guy status. There's just one flavor of status.
That's a good point you bring up, actually. Everyone knows on my show, I talk about my blog articles all the time. I actually wrote an article called How to Become a High Status in a World of False Status Signals. And all right, in my humble opinion, I think that there's social status and there's high status. There's some differences, but let me know if you think that there's any differences between the two. But I think that there's social status and high status. I think that they're both very similar, but in essence that social status is kind of like your local celebrity in your local friend group, for example. Or even when you're high status, I had a status job at the gym when I would train fitness classes. Like you guys, I was leading up to 14 people when I was working at Anytime Fitness. So let me know if you think that there's differences between the two, social status and high status.
Yeah, so there's not the social status is a measurement. And when you get a lot of social status, then you're high status. And by the way, so the problem is the word is so confusing to a lot of people when we say high status. We really should use the term high demand instead. Because what will happen is if you talk to a woman and say, is Dan Bilzerian high status? They're going to be like, oh, no, he doesn't have kids and he didn't do this and I think he's gross. And I'm like, okay, well, let me ask it a different way. Are there a lot of women trying to sleep with Dan Bilzerian? And the answer would be yes. It's like, so the better way to ask the question is a man in demand or not in demand? Like I say the same thing about women. It's like, I don't care how attractive a woman is. I care about how much stimulus she receives. So a better way to stratify whether or not someone's higher or lower status is, are they in demand? Do they have a skill set? Like, for instance, you would say Steph Curry or Patrick Mahomes. Are they in demand? Yes, they have $50 million a year contracts. So they're in demand. Are they high status because of it? Yeah, you could say that. But some people who don't watch American football don't give a fuck about who Patrick Mahomes is. So like it's that part is contextual. But are they in demand? The answer is yes. And then if you were going to say the same thing, it's like, oh, I fucking hate Justin Timberlake. I was like, okay, cool. Could Justin Timberlake come in here and steal your girl right now? Yes. Okay. So he's in high demand. So we could say someone's high demand or low demand. I think that would probably be a better way to do it because that's what we do with like equities, right? We don't say, is this a high status stock? We just actually have a definitive price where the bid and the ask meet. And then we say that's the price, the last transaction of that stock. That's what the defined price of the stock is. That's how we should probably look at men and women as well.
110%. And actually, yeah, I had a note over here that I wrote down because I took notes for this interview, you guys. But if you think about this in terms of game, when celebrity works for you, girls come to you already interested. I mean, we can both agree on that, right?
One more time, say it again.
When celebrity works for you in terms of game, girls come to you already interested, pre-framed, already interested.
Yeah, of course. So it'd be called the warm approach.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you guys. Like, I'm not really famous. Like, I would be a 2 or a 3 out of 10, maybe a 4 out of 10 on the fame scale, depending on what circle you're in. If you're in the crypto bro, fucking self help manosphere space, I'd probably be like a 4 out of 10. But in general, I'm maybe like a 2 out of 10. Um, if you were to go to those places though, you will see guys will come up and want to take pictures with me, and I can visibly see women like becoming interested and wanting to know who I am, coming up and asking me for my Instagram. So if you're asking in a situation like that, is getting attraction from women easier? Yeah, of course it's easy. But then again, like whenever I hang around other guys that I'm friends with, um, I'm friends with certain movie stars and TV stars. And when we go out in Los Angeles, some of them are like they do stand up comedy, and we'll go out on a regular basis. And I'll bring a bunch of girls with us, and we'll hang out. And it's just really interesting. Like no matter what the dude says, the girl is just totally infatuated. And I see women who are married in relationships, and they just sit there and he holds court, and anything he wants to do, she's just down for whatever. And I've seen that because of his fame, just simply because of his fame. And so it's a really interesting thing. It's like, and it overcomes the fact that he might be shorter or not as attractive. It overcomes the fact that he might not be as charismatic. He might not be as funny. He might not even have that great of social alignments. It's really funny. Do you know who Pauly Shore is? A comedian
Yeah.
like back from the night.
Yeah.
All right. So I bump into Pauly 1 or 2 times a month here. He lives in Vegas. I bump into him all the time. He came out when my girlfriend and when I was celebrating her birthday. Pauly came out and he hung out with us that whole time. And it's really interesting to watch how like some women have no idea who he is, because he was pretty famous back in the 90s, but like other women who know who he is literally stop everything they're doing and go up to him like, oh my God, I was your biggest fan, I watched Encino Man. It's really interesting. Like that type of fame can stick into certain places. But here's the thing: if you're a guy who's that, like, only a certain segment of women know who you are, the other women see the first group of women looking at you, which evokes what's called mate choice copying, or what we call in colloquially we call it pre-selection. Right, the lexicon is pre-selection. So when we see that it's like other women have chosen us, therefore more women will choose us, and that's where we get that.
You know, it's funny you were talking about a little bit ago, you were talking a little about female hypergamy, how girls, when they're still married, they will still look for the upgrade plan. I remember you mentioning that. So what I wanted to tell this quick story, you guys. When I was training at Anytime Fitness years ago, I would train mostly a lot of middle-aged women. And what would really, I just want my listeners to really understand this. What Michael is saying is 110% correct, you guys, because I witnessed this myself. I was smiling a little bit ago because I remembered several times where married women would obviously just give me these compliments like, Adam, look at your shoulders and this and that. It's like, I don't I'm just like immune to their compliments at this point, you guys, because I don't give a fuck. But either way, what I'm trying to tell my listeners is that when celebrity works for you, as what I said, in terms of game, girls come to you already interested. That was a big point that I wanted to get to here.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so I'll give you another example. My most recent relationship, when I met her, she had never seen a podcast, had no idea who I was. But what happened was, when we met, there were so many other girls that knew who I was, that when we met, there were 4 girls introducing me to her. Does that make sense? And because there were 4 girls introducing me to her, that social stat. So those 4 girls knew who I was. They had been to several of my events, Babes in Toyland. They'd done my bikini competitions. And then my girlfriend saw the social proof from those 4 girls, which, she said she gave me a shot because she saw that. So social status can transfer from one thing to another. You might not know why someone's famous, but you can see the reaction that they get from other people, and it causes you to be like, who the fuck is that guy?
Yeah. 110%. So I want to tell a quick story to all my listeners because I told Michael Sartain before the interview. That is, if you have not stumbled across my podcast called Why Working Out is a Gateway to Discipline, I recommend you go check that out. But either way, I told this story on my podcast already, but I wanted to let everyone know right now that basically, long story short, about, was it November of 2023? Yes, that was when I started working with Wes Watson, and that was also when I got onto his mid-level program. And massive transformation, and I just wanted to bring that up real quick because honestly, you guys, the only purpose for bringing that up is to tell you the story, the power of just basically networking with people in your field. And obviously, we all know that Wes is in the fitness field, and so the reason for bringing that up is to tell you guys the story of how I met Wes. He DM'd me and he said, "Do you want to get on the program?" And I said, "Yes, let's go." And so I got on the mid-level program for about like 10 months, I want to say. So, yeah. And that was the whole purpose behind that story, is to really remind you guys that when you tell stories about you networking with other people that you basically listen to, that right there is a form of communicating the power of celebrity. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, definitely. But I mean, going back to what you said before, like I would just call it fame brain from the book The Setup. It's just one of these things where like you just get treated very differently when people see you as high status. And it really is, the thing is like we always knew famous people got treated differently, but we didn't know like where the inflection point is. Like at what point is a girl just going on a date with a guy, and then at what point does she actually think she's like dating a guy who's a celebrity? Is that like what's it called? Is that like a defenseman for a hockey team? Is he famous enough to be a celebrity before it was like a blue check mark? Was that it? I think it's different for different people and it's contextual. But the thing I've seen, though, that works the best, and this is another great thing that you can manufacture, if you guys are watching this and you actually want people to have perceived status, believe you have perceived status, is or if you want people to perceive that you have status, one of the things I do is I go out with large groups of women. I'm friends with often with all of them. There'll be some cases where like I'm dating 2 or 3 or 4 of them, but like there'll be a group of like 20 of them. And in those cases, what'll happen is we'll go out into different venues and they'll see other girls will see me with those girls, and then they'll want to come up and figure out more things about me. And so what I've done is sort of manufactured that mid-tier celebrity status, but I've done so with girls that I'm just friends with.
Oh, that's awesome, dude. Yeah, one of my highest ranking articles on my website is my pre-selection article. So, it's the principle of pre-selection in dating, you guys, very fucking powerful. You can read that article, but I can just sum it up for you. And I said this several times on my show already. Women want what other women want. That's really what it is.
Yeah.
So, and it's just like when you can demonstrate that social proof, really fucking powerful, super fucking powerful. So yeah, and we could go on another tangent, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole here. Just stick to the topic of celebrity. But either way, I wanted to bring up another story, and actually, real quick, I don't know if my listeners knew this already, but I actually referred Jeremy Newsom to Marnie of the Wing Girl Method, and then Jeremy Newsom, he's the author of the book Money Grows on Trees, and they both had an interview on the Ask Women podcast. So again, tell stories about how you have connected one person to another. It's another way to communicate the power of celebrity.
Yeah, for sure. So I was Andrew Tate introduced me. He's the one who tried to get me on Fresh and Fit in the first place. And then Andrew introduced me to Justin Waller. Justin Waller introduced me to Rollo. And then I introduced Rollo to Dan Bilzerian. I introduced Rollo to Mystery. Then I introduced Wes Watson. I got to know Wes Watson through Dan Fleischman. And then I introduced Wes Watson to Fresh and Fit. And then I introduced Dan Bilzerian to Fresh and Fit. And then there's a couple other ones where I got a bunch of, there's some of the girls that go on Saucecast. I recommend those girls to come over. Like I'll hit up Adam and I'll be like, hey, you should have this girl come on or whatever. She's in Fort Lauderdale. Mm-hmm. There's a couple others that I think I've connected a few girls to Brian from whatever podcast. I could be wrong about that. I know I've given their info to them, but the other ones are like Babes in Toyland and Teatro, the 2 big party series that I am the MC for in Los Angeles. For those, I usually try to recruit. Originally, I was recruiting like over 50% of the girls for like some of those parties. Now, not so much. There's so many other guys that are involved that I'm happy if I get like, anywhere between 30 and 60 girls to show up to one of these events. Well, that's good, because if there's like 5 of us who do that, that could be 300-400 girls that show up. And so that's what kind of where it's been. And I just feel like if every guy can like work on this skill set, you don't have to be super good looking or rich, but if you can consistently be a guy who can bring 10 to 20 girls to every event that you go to, the ratio just ends up being so much better. Because one thing you'll find is that If you, I've always had this saying: if you want 100 girls to come to your party, invite 2,000 women, and if you want 100 guys to come to your party, don't invite anyone. Like that's the way it works. If you invite 10 guys and 2,000 women, you'll get 100 guys and 100 girls to show up. Men, anytime there's women around, men will just show up. It's really crazy. My birthday party, the last one I had 36 girls. It was me and just 36 girls, and we had a comp table at Hakkasan. And while all the girls were there, like probably another 25 guys showed up during the night to just come tell me happy birthday. And I did not invite them, but I didn't invite anyone. I just knew that they were going to show up because that's just how guys are. You don't have to invite guys. Guys will just show up. And it's just really interesting because the guys will tell me like they want an even ratio of guys to girls. And I'm like, if you want an even ratio, then don't invite any guys because guys will just show up. It's so bad. It's so bad that during the Ignite parties, that they had shotguns and fucking fire hoses out in the front of the yard to keep men from trying to get into the house. Like wow. That was those Ignite parties were so great. The dudes had loaded shotgun. I have videos of it, and they had fire hoses. And at the end of the night, when dudes wouldn't get off, they were fire hosing guys to get off the property. That's how crazy it was.
That sounds like one heck of a party.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think that all of my listeners can really just digest what Michael just said, but also remember that when you introduce people to one another, that is a brilliant way to position yourself as like a local celebrity. Long story short, every single one of my listeners that have come across this podcast, I want you all to remember that when you introduce people to one another, I think that it's really important for you to remember that this does communicate the power of celebrity. That's what I was saying. So
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And also one last thing I want to mention here. Oh yes. When you position yourself as a celebrity in your niche, for example, I think that you don't even need any pickup lines anymore. I wrote that down too. You don't need any of that shit. You have everything working for you. So that, in my mind, is, again, the power of positioning yourself as a local celebrity. So if there's anything that you want to say on that, let me know, because I don't think that pickup lines are necessary at that point.
Well, no, I mean, if you have a lot of status, there's no lines at all.
Yeah.
You can. I did this one time. I had a client who was with me, and I was like, I'm gonna get this girl to give me her number and then hang out with us, and I'm not gonna say a word to her. So I go up to her and I start thumb wrestling with her, and she starts like laughing her ass off. She's thumb wrestling, and then I'm like, I just start making like pantomime memes, and then I hand her my phone just like this, and then she puts her number in, and then gives me her number. If you have enough status, you have enough charisma, you don't even need to say words.
Yeah. So true. So remember, you guys, to just practice. Like it doesn't matter who you practice with. Just go out, talk, be charismatic, be you, and don't try to fake what you're not, So don't fake status with buying shiny objects, because if you just be yourself, everything's going to fall into place. That's how I say it. That's how I see it. And yeah, if there's anything else that you have to say about becoming a local celebrity, let me know, because I think that was an awesome podcast, dude. Seriously.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Adam.
I'm going to put this on my show. I will send it over to you right away. So I appreciate you coming on the Masculine Mindset Show.
Okay. Awesome, Adam. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Status is status, right? Guys, I honestly really liked what Michael Sartain said today. And I want you all to understand something really quick. I got the dates wrong on when I connected with Wes. It was November 2022. When you're in flow state, you guys, shit comes out of your mouth. Sometimes you just say shit that you don't mean to say. And guess what, you guys? I gotta call myself out yet again. You get me? Good. I'm telling you guys right now that I connected with him 2022. All good. No worries. We move forward. The whole point is this, you guys. Be the connector, okay? Be the connector. And remember that when you have status, shit just works out for you. All right? Peace out, you guys. I love you. Remember to look in the show notes. I am going to not provide the free giveaways today, but instead put Michael Sartain's podcast in the show notes, because he interviewed Mystery. All right? You can find that interview on his podcast. Peace out, you guys. I love you.